Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how I make my silicone molds. This is a wax model which I've made and I want to make copies of. So the first thing is to make a sort of sprue in my instance, or something that will attach to your model so it will not float when you're pouring the silicone. This will also act as a sprue in my instance. So a sprue is something it's where you pour the substance into. So in this case it's wax, but also I make waxes for bronze, and I'm then attaching this sprue to a base, and this is a Lego base which I bought online and I cut into a circle so it fits in my vacuum chamber. And I'm then building a Lego wall. For making silicone molds using Lego, you need to use Vaseline to stop the silicone from escaping. So Vaseline in the gaps and the cracks of the wall. You also should build the wall a bit above the model that you're making. This is because, at least for me, I'll be pulling a vacuum and the silicone will tend to rise up, so you'll need to leave space for the silicone to do that. I also make my molds out of cardboard, and when they're quite thin, chocolate packets, the cardboard around them, are quite good for me. You then cut out sections for the sides and the top, and you can wrap it together and tape this up with any form of tape. Parcel tape works fine, or anything. The tape needs to go around all of the edges to ensure the silicone doesn't escape. I then mix up my silicone. My silicone requires a 5% catalyst, but it will say on your particular type of silicone how to mix it. And I pour it into a tub that I don't mind getting a bit messy, and I mix it with a little stick. I need a stick that will be able to get all the way around the edges and the corners of my tub so that I mix it thoroughly. And then when you're pouring it, I've been told that if you pour it slowly and allow the silicone to sort of lap onto itself, this helps to remove bubbles. It's also good for when you're making a mold to pour the silicone in the corner of the mold so that it slowly folds over your model instead of pouring it on your model. You can see in this video that I did build up the Lego higher than what I did in the last section. I didn't, however, build it up high enough because it still overflows, unfortunately. As you can see, I had to add a bit of air in to make sure that it didn't completely overflow. And if you watch now, you can see, so this is at full vacuum, and eventually this is how you know that you've done it for long enough, because it slowly sort of falls back down. It's more dramatic when you haven't had to add air halfway through, but it was near the top in this instance, and then it slowly has fallen down, and that means at this point that you've pulled out enough gas from the silicone and you can add the gas back in, because it will carry on bubbling like that under a vacuum for a very long time, and you've already pulled out the air that you need to. I then leave it for 24 hours for the silicone to cure. This is the first time I actually made a silicone mold using Lego, and for this particular trial I didn't use any Vaseline, and so there was quite a lot of silicone which managed to escape into the Lego bricks. However, I've done it now a couple more times after this and used Vaseline, and that has stopped nearly all of the silicone from escaping. Not always all, but that's probably because I haven't successfully managed to get a good coverage. Anyway, after you have taken all the Lego apart, you can clean up the silicone mold by cutting off any excess silicone and take a knife to slowly cut the opening that you will need to get your model out and any future copies. When you're cutting out your model, you'll be making a seam line, which there may be a small seam line on the models that you cast from this silicone mold. So it's quite good to look at your model before you make your silicone mold and decide where you think this seam line should be. On some things it's easier to know where it should be than on other things, but somewhere where it'd be easy to clean off a seam line and to get rid of. Obviously, it needs to be long enough for you to be able to take the models out intact. Once you've cleaned up your silicone mold and taken your model out, you can then prepare it for casting extras. Obviously, I also made a cardboard silicone mold, and this is me taking it out in a similar fashion where I'm just cutting the cardboard, and yeah, I did the same thing. And for these silicone molds, I use elastic bands to keep the wax from pouring out, and I just heated some wax up in a tin can on a little hot plate. After pouring the wax, I then shake it to try and remove any excess air bubbles. It depends on the model that you're trying to make. Sometimes you can hold it in a certain direction to help with the air. You have to look at the model and think where the air might get stuck. After maybe 10-20 minutes, it's solidified and you can take out your new copy. It still has some defects. Normally the first copy isn't as good as future copies, but I can fix that and then make numerous multiples of this particular model. I did the same with the smaller bird. Thank you for watching. Wow, I guess I'm really tired. Wow. Look at this. It's a silicone mold. It's fascinating. Wow. I'm tired of doing this now. I just need to find a better way to make a thumbnail. Wow. Lego. Lego.